Merry Christmas, everyone. It is time to jump back into all things AnimVR. It's a little bit of a hiatus since I've touched it. But I've been playing with the notion of, well, first off, I've been jumping into Unity a little bit, dipping my big toe in it, and you know, just seeing how far I can get with it, essentially. Um, and as I was sort of exploring my options, I was thinking, well, how do we integrate AnimVR together with Unity? And they have that new toolkit out, and I still really want to jump into it. And I may even do so with this piece. In fact, I was actually trying to get something else altogether while going through my list of objects. But because I have clearly severe ADD of some kind in terms of projects, I pulled this little guy from one of my very, very short Poly Google Blocks sculpts. I always get Poly and Google Blocks mixed up for some reason. Anyways, having said that, half an hour later, this is sort of what I was coming up with. So off the car, right? Blub, 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 blub. A little effects to go with it. And then we have ourselves a little kitty cat on top. So I think today I'm just gonna shut up for the most part. Let my podcast, one of my favorite podcasts, play in the background. And you could kind of see how I bake my donuts. I don't think that's an expression that anybody uses, but let's see what I can do here. So he she is pretty well rounded. I'm still thinking about a name for her. Let's just say her. She's kind of headbanging. She doesn't care. I think I'm gonna get some eyes on her. Definitely a tail. Probably some streaming water along this here. Let me see if I can go all the way around for a second. I don't know how many of you have played with Google Blocks, but it's surprisingly challenging for me. I actually have a lot of an easier time in Medium and AnimVR in terms of modeling, but I think as time goes on, I'll sort of get the hang of it more and more. But it's been fun jumping into all these different apps. It's a little difficult, obviously, jumping from one to the other, and sometimes having to wrap your mind around, well, this thing does this particular thing, and how do I get it to integrate with this other app? And so that's sort of the space I'm in right now, of sort of figuring out a really nice pipeline and workflow. Meantime, as promised, I'm going to shut up. And if I have time today, I might actually jump into Unity and see how far I get with that. There's a whole other piece that I've been working on, and I can't seem to find it in the models here, unless I've totally lost my way around the alphabet. Nope, I don't see it. All right, let's Oculus Dash this sucker. Ooh, hello. You know what, I'm just gonna do it off of
and then blossomed into Walt Disney World. The community, however, of the subject of the film are the residents of the lesser motels in the area of Kissimmee, which are basically beyond the boundaries of the expensive and incredibly successful theme parks. But these are hotels that are more like projects in the sort of welfare housing state. They have names like the Magic Castle and the Futureland, and they're painted purple and they're painted yellow. But all that paint can't cover over the fact that many of the people who are living there are long-term residents who are in the red, who are essentially, they're struggling to make ends meet and struggling to pay the rent. It's an economic wasteland, but it's also, bizarrely enough, a kind of wonderland for the children who run wild around the film. The central character is a 6-year-old Moni, played by Brooklyn Kimberly Prince, whose mum, Hayley, Bria Vinate, I think is how you pronounce it, I may be wrong, she's struggling to make ends meet. She's out of a job and she's basically doing whatever she can to pay the rent. So she's hawking perfume to upmarket resort customers. She's stealing passes from wide-eyed tourists and more. Meanwhile, her daughter and her gang, 2-3 of them at a time, are running riot around the motel to the dismay of Bobby, who's the motel manager, played by Willem Dafoe. The film never soft pedals on the harsh reality or the economic reality that these families are living under. But one of the things that Sean Baker is an incredibly sort of humanist director in the tradition of the Dardennes, or perhaps Ken Loach, is he absolutely inhabits the environments of his films. You never get the sense that he's a tourist in these environments. You get the sense that he's right inside those environments. And what this film manages to do is to see the world through the eyes of the characters who are living in it. It uses a mixture of these, some street casting, they use some Instagram casting, they use some extensive audition process, all of which creates an ensemble cast that you completely believe in, and into which more seasoned performers like Caleb Landry Jones or like Willem Dafoe fit really perfectly. So there's no sort of jarring between those two things. And the film has real sadness, and it has real heartbreak, and it has real poignancy, and it also has joy. It begins with celebration and, celebrate good times, come on, which seems to be an ironic thing, particularly since the use of the title, The Florida Project, is an ironic use that Disney utopian community of the future idea. It's a film which is bursting with life. It's a film which has terrific kids' performances, which says a lot about the way the director has worked with the kids. It is superbly shot. It has heart and soul to spare. There are things in it that'll make you laugh, things in it that'll make you cry. It's been called this year's Moonlight by some people, and I can see why. It's really good.
The creatures in the story are toys. They're toys, but the woods are real. And the size is wrong. The bear should be smaller. Size of a little brother. There. Yes. Yes, that's it.
Blue, are you writing a book? I thought we were just having fun.
We're writing a book and we're having fun.
I didn't know you could do both at the same time. You don't usually look like you're having fun while you're writing.
And that's a clip from Goodbye Christopher Robin. I'm delighted to say that it stars Donald Gleeson and Margot Robbie are here. Margot, hello.
Hello.
Donald, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
It's very nice to see you. How was the premiere then? Was it all fun and fabulous?
It was actually a really special night because it was the first time I'd seen the film in its entirety, and I was sitting next to Donal and we're kind of looking back on this little chapter of our lives suddenly on screen, and hearing the cinema kind of sniffle in unison as the tears flowed at the end was oddly satisfying.
So you went to the premiere and stayed and watched it all. You didn't sneak out the back straight away.
No, I wanted to see. I was the same as Margot. I also, Carter Burwell did the music for it, and I'm a huge fan of his work. I hadn't heard that. Yeah. I wanted to see the film with that, and and graded and everything, which I hadn't seen, and then just experience it with an audience. I think people find it hard to lie when they're just expressing themselves through either laughing or crying or deathly silence. And there were loads and loads of laughs, first of all, which really was a nice kind of thing to find out, that people did find it kind of charming in a funny way. And then, lots of tears at the end. So I'm happy. It'll probably be the last time I watch it for a while, because just self-loathing becomes too difficult to bear. Yeah. But it was
you spoke about this last time you were on the show was for Ex Machina, and the self-loathing bit came up then, about how you always thought you ruined films.
Yeah.
Did you feel you ruined this one?
I have my issues with it, yeah, but I think that's just part of the learning experience, and I think the film is strong enough. I think it's got something genuinely pure to say. I was part of a film called About Time,
Richard Curtis
with Richard Curtis, that has really hung around. It's one of those films that meant something to people, and it carried some weight that I think at the time a lot of people can be sniffy about, because it was a romantic comedy or this is a period film. And if it matters to people, that's kind of the best thing you can do. And I can feel that this matters to people when they see it, which is lovely.
Luke Doolin, greetings. My name is Luke. I am from Dublin, and I am an MTL, FTW, etc. I am writing following Ant Green's correspondence last week, in which Ant experienced the highly unlikely event of seeing a seafaring real-life Andy Serkis whilst listening...
A seafaring reel?
Yeah, because they were on a ferry.
Okay.
I see. Listening to the good man himself on your podcast. I too had a similar public transport-based what are the odds experience a few weeks ago whilst listening to your podcast, this time on a train. There I was enjoying a pleasant journey accompanied by a latte, a red velvet donut. Wow, imagine that. And the wonderful Domhnall Gleeson and Margot Robbie on your show being interviewed by Simon, when, amongst the train's disembarkers at Malahide Station in North Dublin...
This is full of detail.
I see what I initially think is a striking doppelganger of the ubiquitous Mr. Gleeson. Upon this figure getting closer, I realise that it is, in fact, the actual, your real Domhnall Gleeson. The fact that this unlikely audiovisual 3D Domhnall Gleeson experience occurred as I was listening to the part of the interview where Domhnall's current omnipresence was being discussed felt particularly fitting. Having seen Mother, which I loved, earlier that week, I momentarily considered jumping off the train to catch him and attempt to engage in some heated thematic discussion, but decided against it, as he had alluded that since the movie's release, this had become something of an issue. I continued the journey in the hope that the stars may align twice and I might see Margot Robbie exiting at my stop. But unfortunately, this was not in the universe's plan. Her loss, though, I had saved her half the donut.
I'm Princess Twilight Sparkle, and this is my home, Equestria. A land filled with magic, music, whoa! And most importantly, friendship. Life is perfect. I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
Watching the My Little Pony movie, I felt like one of those people. There was a load of colour, and there was some speaking and some noise and some songs, and there were unicorns of different colours, and I literally thought, I have got absolutely no idea what any of this means. So after watching the film all the way through, I went to look at a plot synopsis, okay? Whoa. I read the plot synopsis of what I had just seen. Yep. And I am even now, I'm more confused. I'll give the little highlights. The Ponies of Equestria are having a friendship festival, first friendship, which is overseen by Princess Twilight Sparkle in Canterlot. The festivities are interrupted by a storm creature commanded by the broken-horned unicorn Tempest Shadow, who uses magical obsidian orbs to petrify Twilight's fellow princesses. Okay. There's then a bit about a whole load of cake. There's a joke about cake. There's a cake goes everywhere where it's not supposed to go.
Pinky!
You have visual on buttercream. Visual confirmed. Go for cleanup.
And then there is some stuff with hippos, and then there's some fly around stuff, and then there's some colour, and then there's some talking, and then there's some more colour, and I have absolutely no idea what any of it meant.
There will be impressions in the next few moments.
So, It, the new version of It is out. So, Stephen King's Doorstopper, famously turned into was made for television. Tom Lee was directed, and of course starring as Pennywise the clown,
the dancing clown,
Pennywise the dancing clown, Tim Curry. Hiya, Georgie.
There you go. And that is actually
quite a good Tim Curry, isn't it?
It is very good.
And this is something which is very close to our hearts, because both you and I over the years have discussed things which get under people's skin. And one of them is, the idea of scary clowns. Coulrophobia. And of course, the classic scary clown is the scary clown in It, as played by Tim Curry in that miniseries. I mean, the miniseries itself is a little bit that TV version is a little bit up and down, but Tim Curry never puts a clown foot wrong. And that very first sequence in which you see, hiya, Georgie, when he's hiding in the storm drain is really, really properly creepy. The two things that it reminded me of most are The Goonies and Poltergeist. It's very, very similar in tone to The Goonies and Poltergeist. The thing that really drives the film is that he has a clear and very tangible affection for the kids. The kids are all on this sort of cusp. It's going to be a coming of age story. They're all individually racked with fears and guilts and phobias, and they're all having to sort of face it, which is a sort of classic coming of age story. And he clearly likes them very much, and you can feel that energy of him liking those characters, and that gives the film this sort of driving power. one of the things people keep saying is it scary? Well, what it is, it's a horror adventure. And when I say Goonies and Poltergeist, I mean, particularly in the case of Poltergeist, Poltergeist is very much a sort of, Spielbergian fantasia, which absolutely has horrifying things in it, but it has that sort of, adventure feel. This with the scenes of kids on bicycles, scenes of kids having a rock fight, the outdoor stuff, which weirdly at some points also reminded me of things like Kings of Summer. It is as much a coming-of-age tale and as much a story about those friendships and about those, the kind of misfits finding each other, as it is about archetypal mythological horror, in which it sort of manifests most clearly in the form of Pennywise. The difference with this version is that this particular Pennywise has got this very, almost like a kind of babyish head, almost like a sort of big malevolent baby head, and these kind of Bugs Bunny teeth, and speaks with this lilting, broken chime kind of voice. This is absolutely a film for people who like Poltergeist, who like The Goonies, who like Stand By Me, who like all of those kind of youthful adventure stories, but told with this kind of, this very sort of firm streak of horror with a great inflection of Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street. Personally, I could have had it being a little bit more scary, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked its spirit. It's only the early part of the story. We still have the adult part of the story to do. This is chapter 1, so, we have more to come, hopefully. That's happening. And on the strength of how enthusiastic people seem to be about seeing this new version, I have no doubt that is happening.
Mark's review of It, ending the penultimate section of our Kermode and Mayo Best of 2017.
Still to come, Amanda Iannucci and Paddington 2.
That's after the 5 Live News. Welcome back. It's Mark Kermode and Simon Mayo here with some of the film reviews and guests you've asked to hear again in our well-titled Best of 2017 on BBC Radio 5 Live. In our final half hour,
Amanda Iannucci, Kristen Wiig and Steve Carell, and I put it off for as long as I could, but in the end I was compelled to watch it, The Emoji Movie.
Let's start with something calming. It's Mark doing Transformers 5.
I want to stay, and I want to fight them.
The operation is over.
We're not giving up, okay? Without sacrifice, there can be no victory.
Here we go again. We start off with the new movie in a kind of, I know I mentioned Monty Python in that before, but it is a sort of Python-esque Arthurian beginning with this sozzled Merlin, Stanley Tucci, who is going off to a mysterious cave in order to get some help for his embattled kin. And you do half expect somebody to come out of the cave and go, "Fetchez la vache!" We are French, you're English pig dog types. But no, they don't. What they do is that they provide a transformery sort of dragon. Okay, then we come forward to the present, future, the whenever it is. Incidentally, when I'm doing this plot synopsis, if you think it doesn't make any sense, that's because I'm just trying to scramble together the bits of it's like standing in a junkyard that's been surrounded by the wreckage of a car, and you're trying to explain that that bit connected to that, and that was there was a carburetor over there and whatever. So sort of present, future America, where Transformers are outlawed now, except in some places where they're not, and Marky Mark is helping to hide them in junkyards. Meanwhile, in England, Sir Anthony Hopkins is living with a robot called Cogman, I think, who is clearly ripped off C-3PO. So clearly ripped off C-3PO that at one point Mark Wahlberg says to him, "Oi, C-3PO rip-off," because Michael Bay's idea of funny is to do something profoundly stupid and then point at it and say it out loud. Mm-hmm. One thing I do stand by, and well, many things I stand by in that thing that you did there, is that Michael Bay does a lot of things, but be funny is generally not one of them. I mean, he is about as funny as the workings of an air filter system. Anyway, somewhere else, Vivian Wembley, who is an Oxford history professor, is explaining to people that Arthurian legends are just legends, and she's doing this while dressed as a stripper. And we know that she's dressed as a stripper because at some point Mark Wahlberg says, "You're wearing a stripper dress." Once again, Michael Bay do something stupid, but then get somebody to point at it and say it out loud, and that makes it funny. So, out in space, an alien queen is doing something with Optimus Prime to turn him into a nemesis, and then he'll have to come back to Earth to bring about the end of the world, which Sir Anthony Hopkins is very concerned about. Meanwhile, back on Earth, military types are running around doing military type things in short, bursty bursts that don't make any sense, but have got some sort of, military bursty things in them. And then John Turturro is on the phone talking from somewhere else, trying to cut a deal because he wants to become part of a sort of Dan Brown organisation. And a group of men with stern haircuts are looking sternly at screens and saying stern things in a stern manner. Surely the only way that inevitable disaster can be averted is for Sir Anthony Hopkins to get Marky Mark Wahlberg and the history professor dressed as a stripper together in the same room and explain the plot to them before Michael Bay decides to blow everything up. So overall, I mean, it's terrible. It is really, really ineptly poor, filmmaking. It's crashingly loud, mind-bendingly dull, utterly without coherence and purpose other than as a money-making thing. But it is less obnoxious than the previous Transformers films. It is by no means the worst. And as opposed to making me angry, it just made me sleepy and tired.
Can you just do a word on the casting, Amanda? Because, I mean, uniformly brilliant performances, and our very own Jason Isaacs.
Yes. Who kind of has his own entrance halfway through the film.
He does, and he plays Zhukov,
Zhukov, head of the Soviet army, great war hero. So who felt he could just tell Stalin what to do. The only one, really. And
Jason plays Zhukov with a Yorkshire accent.
Yes.
Which he's described himself as sounding a little bit Brian Glover in Kes.
Yes, a little bit. A smattering of Sean Bean as well.
There, I mean, I think it is a fantastic entrance because when he comes in, because everybody is terrified of saying the wrong thing except for him. He just genuinely doesn't care.
Let's play a clip just to illustrate some of the points that we're making here. Certainly the accents point rather nicely. So we've got Steve Buscemi as Nikita Khrushchev and Jason as, is it Georgy Zhukov or Georgy Zhukov?
We had long debates about that, and I left it up to them to decide.
Zhukov.
We've replaced all the swearing, and there's lots of it with bird song, so there's as much bird song as there is acting.
I was the one who put the trains back on, I know. Comrade, I'll punch you into a sticky pulp.
Thank you.
Thinking?
Oh, I don't know, okay, but I did it. And I really need your help.
To do what? The body's piling up in the streets. A bit late, isn't it?
What if we blame this on someone who's out of control?
Nicky, be very careful what you say next.
That's high.
Who?
Yeah, it's really high up. Okay, so this is what
we
selected.
I'm going to have to report this conversation.
Oh, bloody hell.
Threatening to do harm.
Threatening
or obstruct any member of the Presidium in the process of looking at you.
Well, look at you.
Nikita Khrushchev. You balls like Kremlin domes, right?
Be serious. Are you in?
I'm in. Thinks he can take on the Red Army?
Oh, that's
Germany. I think I can take a flesh-lumping waistcoat. No, it's got to be tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Sorry, you busy washing your hair or what?
I'm going to have to go and see this film again.
Okay, it sounds a bit like Tweet of the Day there.
Absolutely.
That's what it sounds like whenever he and I start discussing politics. So it's the sequel to Blade Runner. It felt like a film which was made with an absolute love and respect for the original, but also the bravery to go somewhere else. I did an on stage with Ridley Scott and Denis Villeneuve before I had seen Blade Runner 2049 when they were showing an IMAX presentation of Blade Runner, and at the end of it they were going to show 10 minutes of 2049, which I didn't want to see because I wanted to see the whole film. And there was a lovely discussion between the two of them. I mean, as anyone who knows Blade Runner will know, there is a central enigma in Blade Runner about the nature of Deckard, the nature of the central character. And what's really lovely is that although...
What do you mean by the nature?
Well, I don't... Okay, well, I mean exactly that. That's as much as I'm going to say. I know it sounds really ridiculous to talk about plot spoilers when you're talking about a film that is that old. But the central character of Deckard, his nature, like what he is, what his true nature is an enigma in the original film. Ridley Scott is very clear about how it actually works out. He says, no, this is what he is. He is this thing. And Denis Villeneuve says, well, actually, maybe, but maybe he isn't. And people have now, to this day, battled. I mean, there was an interview recently in which Ridley Scott and Harrison Ford were arguing about the fact that they'd never quite agreed as to what Deckard was. In fact, when I did Blade Runner 2049, we got Hampton Fancher and David Webb together, and we said, okay, who first came up with the idea that Deckard may not be what you expect?
Do you have to speak in this riddle when it's 30 years ago?
You know what? I'm just trying to tread very, very carefully. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What matters is this, that there is an enigma at the centre of the original Blade Runner. And what Blade Runner 2049 does is take that enigma, explore it, unpack it, and preserve it all at the same time. It is a film which has absolutely the same key core concerns as the original film, but it also has its own vision of where to take those key core concerns that may or may not be in tune with how Ridley Scott reads Blade Runner. It is a film of quite breathtaking visual beauty, but more importantly, and I almost feel like weeping when I say this, it is a film that not only doesn't let Blade Runner down, but makes you feel like that dedication that you had to it for all those years is shared by the person that made this film. I mean, the second time round, I literally just sat there and went, wow.
You didn't weep?
I without wishing to refer to, Rutger Hauer's final speech, I kind of did a little bit, but more out of relief and joy, and just because if you're a genre fan and if you love science fiction and if you love the world building science fiction that Ridley Scott was doing with Blade Runner, it's just great to see a film that goes, you know what, I love that too. And actually, here's the key thing. If you saw Arrival and you know how Denis Villeneuve approached the idea of science fiction in Arrival, he just did it again, but with a Blade Runner sequel.
My brother! Drew! Drew! No. Brother, I am... I'm so happy! After all of these years, finally I'm meeting you! Yep, alright, good. Oh, look at that. You must be the beautiful wife.
Beautiful? Oh, stop it. Oh, sweet talker.
How is my brother finding a wife like you when he is so bald? I'm joking.
And that is a clip from Despicable Me 3. It stars Steve Carell and Kristen Wiig. And I'm laughing only because I'm slightly confused, because when Steve and Kristen just came into the room, Steve calls Kristen Christian Bale. And I'm worried that I'm going to make a mess up. But anyway, Kristen and Steve, hello.
Hello. Hello, good morning.
Is that like a thing that you do, Steve? Just to...
Well, inadvertently, it's a thing that I do. It's not a planned joke. It's just I worked with Christian Bale a year or two ago, and I guess I have Christian Bale on the mind.
We all do.
And Kristen Wiig looks a lot like Christian Bale.
Yeah. I've been told that.
It's hard to...
You've done 6 movies with one of them.
I have, yeah. That would be the Kristen.
That's right. We had Tom Hanks was on the show a while back talking about doing Woody in Toy Story over a whole bunch of years, 20 years, and how voices change over the years. And he said it's enormously to his advantage for that he doesn't smoke and he drinks a little bit, but not very much. So his voice hasn't changed very much. So you've been associated with these pictures for a while, particularly, Steve. When you hear the original work, is your voice different at all? Have you
I smoke and drink all the time. I'm actually smoking and drinking right now.
That's so right. Early. Along with Christian Bale here, who's got some Jack Daniels and 20 Silk Cut.
I don't think the voice has changed. But you know what? The character has matured. And I'm taking him on a journey. In this 3rd episode.
No, he hasn't.
He's changed internally. But no, I don't think the voice has really changed. The voice is such a simple, stupid, silly thing. It's not... When people ask about how I developed the voice, I just did a voice that made my kids laugh, and that's the one I used. And there was no country attached to it. It was... And that's what makes it so easy, too, because I set the bar very low for myself with this voice. So
secret
it's easy.
to happiness.
What's that?
Secret to happiness.
It is. Set the bar low at all times.
Lower expectations, job satisfaction guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's been my motto.
So if it makes your kids laugh, then that's fine.
Yes.
And have they seen this?
They have not seen the third one yet.
Why not?
Well, I don't see my kids too often. Well, it hadn't been completed, and we wanted to see, as a family, we wanted to see the final product, because you can see earlier versions that have the incomplete animation and little bits where the characters don't really move properly.
Oh yeah,
nice.
Funny.
And it's always better to see the finished product.
Also, when we see it at the premiere, the theater's usually filled with kids, and that's just the best audience to watch this movie with, because watching kids crack up and hearing them laugh it's so worth it.
And I know that everything is recorded separately because that's the way it always happens. Yeah. But I did wonder with you two, because you spark off each other so well, and because you've done 6 movies together, and because you clearly get on, whether everything.
Okay. So I'm going to end this for now. I think I'm pretty happy with this for the most part. You know what I'll do though? I'm going to add a little bit of highlights to those. Whoops. Nope. Doop, 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 doop. So I'm just using the straight line tool to add little highlights there. That's fun. Okay, there we go. Okay, I can't help myself now, and I'm just adding it to rain. Hey there, Sanjay. You're in my live stream. Happy holidays to you, too. Let's add some there. All right, there we go, guys. All right, let's make this into a little movie. So I'm gonna save one more time. And you know what? Let's do a little. I can't believe I didn't even add a camera to all this. Okay, let's add a camera. Make sure everything is good. Nice. There we go. Ah, it's been a while since I've done this. Okay. Let's make the stage again. Get this comfortable. So the way we do this is line it up with the left first. Then now I have myself a steady cam. Okay. You know what? Let's take a wee picture first for a thumbnail shot. Say cheese. There we go. I still don't know what the name of this cat's going to be. Maybe you guys can help me out with that. Okay. Also, where's this camera in space? There we go. Start there. Let's try to make this less than 10 seconds. Good. I want the cinema camera up there. That's awesome. We're on one. So again, left. So you see this little reticule in the middle here. I'm going to line it up with the camera, push with the right trigger, I mean. And now I have a very smooth, this is my favorite camera, okay? I cannot emphasize this enough. Probably my favorite camera in any living program right now. So Dario and Milan, this, I don't know how you guys cook this one up, but it's beautiful. It's very intuitive. I love how it moves. It's just super smooth. I mean, I don't even really think about doing keyframes or easing in and easing out. Those things don't come to my mind, and I think that is, to me, the beauty of working in this space. It's very hard for me to communicate how embodied that feels. It's a very cliched word in VR, but it's very true, I think. Anyways, enough talking. Let's do a little video. got this weird staccato thing going on. I wonder if I can fix that a little bit. I might not do it today, but yeah, it's like got one frame in the very beginning that's not. I think I know why. I think I have to. I mean, everything's looping okay. That. Whoa, what is that? Oh, interesting. Well, I'm not going to have you guys watch me try to troubleshoot that, but I'm going to come back another time to work with the Anim VR toolkit. This was just a good bit of fun for me. But Merry Christmas again to you all. Happy holidays. I hope you're surrounded by love and warmth. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.